Hello, dear foodie friends, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. I'm your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I'm so glad you're joining me in the Viking La Cornue showroom here at the Merchandise Mart with the fabulous co-host, Chef Jaime Laurita.
How you doing, guys?
Yes, he is the brand ambassador and creative director for Viking and Middleby, and I am just so excited, Jaime, to have one of my favorite chefs here today. We share just such special history we'll chat about. Chef Gale Gand, James Beard Award winner for Outstanding Pastry Chef, Food Network star for 8 years on Sweet Dreams, a very prolific cookbook author. You can see the display here. We'll leave links and everything, but welcome to Kitchen Chat.
Thank you so much for having me on. There's nothing I like better than chatting. So this is the perfect place for me to be.
How fun. There was just an event that was hosted here in the showroom, and Jaime, it was so exciting to actually make a bacon wrapped shrimp dish.
You made it.
Well,
you cooked.
Oh, you made it. It was from your cooking.
I
Yes,
taught you guys.
yes.
Yeah, but you
that
were in the
was
kitchen with us, which is super fun.
Yeah, which cookbook
exciting.
did that come from?
Actually, that one's not in a book yet, so that'll be in the next book.
Okay,
is the
because
answer
now
to
we're
that
talking
question.
about book number 8 is what we were talking about mostly today, was her latest book called Lunch.
Yeah, Gale Gand's Lunch.
Gale Gand's Lunch. Gale, tell us about this amazing collection of cookbooks. One of the things that I love about being a chef and being friends with Gale Gand is she told me today that I'm allowed, after 3 times of giving her the credit, that I'm allowed to take credit for her recipes.
Yes, the third time you make a recipe, you own it.
Okay, fine.
You don't have to say like, oh, this is Gale Gand's recipe. You can say, this is my recipe.
Right. Well, I love your books.
If you've gone to the trouble to make it 3 times,
Yes.
at least you should get the cred for it at that point.
Well, I think after 3 times too, it becomes a little bit more of your recipe, because there's like certain things, like I add a little bit of this and a little bit of that to it.
Or even just like how you measure might be slightly different than how I do. So your version is going to be a little bit different than mine.
Right.
So you own it.
Well, the thing I love most about Gale Gand's books are, like most cookbooks, the pictures are beautiful, but do the recipes work?
They actually weirdly work.
Well, that's
compared to a
why-
lot of other recipe books.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which is why, because I would cook from other people, and I'm not naming names, but I would cook from cookbooks,
Ooh, I just did
and
one name.
recipes would not come out. I'm like, this is so wrong.
Right.
Like, how can this, famous, prolific chef not have recipes that have been tested? And you know what? I'm going to test my recipes. And so I actually have my recipes tested by my girlfriends who are not professional chefs. They don't have, fancy pants kitchens like you or I have probably. I have a Viking kitchen, of course.
My kitchen's fancy.
Yeah. Is it?
So are my pants.
Yeah.
So,
And they don't have like fancy cookware.
Right.
That's who's cooking for my book. So
well,
I
that's
want to
really
make sure
smart.
that they work.
Sure,
for
that's
those
smart.
guys.
Well, those are the people that are going to be purchasing your cookbook
Yes.
and using the recipes.
And that's who's emailing me with questions, or who's coming to my classes to work with me more. So that's who I love cooking with, is the home cook.
So what is, I guess, the most popular question or the most asked question that you get for
One of
Ask
the most
Gale?
asked questions I get is, how do I make my chocolate chip cookies chewy? Everyone wants big and chewy chocolate chip
how do you?
cookies. You gotta, buy my book.
Gotta
for
buy
that.
the book.
Yes.
Another one I
Gotta buy the
get,
book.
which we talked about today, like, how do you make brownies fudgy versus how do you make them cakey? So that's a product of extra egg or not extra egg in it. So things like that. So, it's fundamental baking questions. But I get a lot of too, my pie crust is tough. What did I do wrong? And there's usually like 3 little things they do wrong, and we can correct those 3 things either online, or you can come to one of my pie camps and we can fix it there. It's like the easy therapy, like the 101 stuff of baking. So those are some of the common ones.
Jaime, I want to go to a pie camp.
I'm ready to go
Oh
to
my
camp.
goodness.
We have a camp song. You write letters home to your parents.
Guys, it's true. People have like pie problems.
They do, and they have pie anxiety. They have high anxiety.
Hold on. They have pie anxiety.
high anxiety.
Pie anxiety.
Right.
There's a word in there, but
There
you
is.
like solve all the.
Well, because there's sort of common things that everybody does wrong.
What's the one? What's the
The
most?
main one is that they mix their fat in too long. Most cookbooks will say like mix it till they're pea-sized,
Right.
till the butter or the shortening or the lard is pea-sized. And I want to retract that and say chickpea size. So you want to leave it even bigger. The deal with pie crust is there's hunks of butter or fat in it. That butter or fat has a little bit of water in it. So butter has It's 82% fat and 18% something else, and a lot of that's water. When water gets in the oven and gets over 212 degrees, it turns to steam. Steam needs to get out. It pushes its way out, and it makes that flake. It makes that chamber of air. And that's what you're looking for in pie dough. So if your fat is bigger, if it's chickpea size, you're going to get like a bigger flake.
Oh, that makes total sense.
If you mix it in too much, you get like a sandy texture.
Absolutely.
Which sometimes you want. Like
Right.
with, French sablé, you want a sandy texture.
Right.
But with American style pie dough, you do not. So a lot of it is just, shut that mixer off sooner than you think.
I love today learning that Gale has a Viking kitchen. I've always had Viking kitchens, and we were cooking in Viking ovens today. So I was really excited that you're using our brand, and that makes me happy. How important are, I'm always a fan of, and I always talk about your ingredients and your tools. How do you feel about that? Your ingredients, how important are the ingredients? For in other words, one butter versus the next kind of butter.
Well, for me, I wrote a book called Butter, Sugar, Flour, Eggs, and that was sort of me coming out of the closet about my love affair with my ingredients. I have like a intimate relationship with my ingredients and how they react and how they act and their consistency. As a pastry chef, a lot of what I do is chemistry and physics.
Right.
And that doesn't change.
Scary.
The universe never lets you change that. So you need to sort of understand that part of the language before you try to improv, before you go beyond that. So I have this like funny relationship with my ingredients, and they're all very alive to me. Before I was a cook, I was a silver and goldsmith. And so I was manipulating metal, which again has like a aliveness to it, but it's really slow. These molecules are like really stiff and tight together, and to get them to be like pliable and malleable, you have to heat them up and cool them off in a certain way to get them sort of spongy so that you can bend the metal. Food is so much more malleable and so much more alive and reacts to air and cold and heat. And I love all those attributes. You can see I get like passionate about it. I have to manipulate these materials and understand, their language and what makes them move. And work within
Deeper
it.
is that, for me, it also matters emotionally how you step up to the stove.
It's even like when you put your apron on, when you're tying your apron. I remember seeing the movie, I'm forgetting which movie it is. It's a foreign film where there's a woman chef in it. And
Babettes Feast?
I think it's Babettes Feast. And she walks up to the stove, puts her apron on, and you can tell whoever was the, consultant on that one, like got that right, like taught her how you're wrapping yourself, you're like strapping yourself in to get ready to be at the stove. And I used to just love that, and then you tie and then you fold down the waistband. Like that's sort of a ritual, kind of like clearing your voice before you're about to sing something.
That's a great analogy.
And I love the ritualisticness of what we do. There's a lot of that about it that's I get proud of.
Well, I have to share a really exciting side note. I actually interviewed on Kitchen Chat the chef for Babettes Feast.
The consultant?
Yes. No, the actual chef.
Oh, the chef that
that prepared it. And here's the fun insight, and a lot of people don't know this. His dad was the royal pastry chef of Denmark and Copenhagen.
Oh, really?
And anyway, he actually has a place in southern Illinois. Lasse Sorensen is his name. And the reason that he was formerly a pastry chef.
Okay.
The reason they had him on there is the star who was playing the chef, Babette, in Babettes Feast, did not like escargot and all of the food she was preparing, so everything was marzipan. And he made it. Yes.
Oh my God, he had to recreate it all in marzipan.
You're an icon in the food business. You're a woman that pioneered. I remember being in culinary school and hearing about Gale Gand, and you're still so current, right? You're like, you've got all of these cookbooks, you've got all of these amazing products. You're current. You're always on the edge. Tell a budding chef how you did that.
Well, first I just want to respond to, there's this whole generation of chefs and pastry chefs that grew up watching me on TV.
I was one of them.
And it's so fun. They come up to me, they're like now 25 and all shiny and tall and, the best looking they'll ever be in their lives. And they'll say to me that the reason they went into pastry or went into restaurants was because of me. And it might be that, they were in 4th grade and their teacher used to put my show on while they were waiting for the bus. There's a whole lot of that. Like, I have these sort of areas of people who watched my show, and one was school kids. While they were waiting for the bus, teachers would put my show on because it was, I guess, kept their attention. One is, there's this whole batch of women who were either nursing or recovering from knee or hip surgery that would watch me in the afternoon. So I get people like, you got me through my, my rehab. And then there's this prison in Miami that watches me, used to watch me every day, and I hear from them through letters. I'm also apparently giant in the Philippines, and I don't mean height-wise, but
I was recently in the Philippines, and there's a billboard of Gale Gand.
No way.
seriously, I'm like Elvis in the Philippines. Wow. Sweets and sugar are huge in the Philippines, and cake decorating is really big. So my show, apparently, I think it's still on. Like, it went on for years. Yeah, so I'm like Elvis.
So you've stayed relevant, and you've when I started culinary school a little bit later in life. I was just about to turn 30.
And I got in late too. Yeah. I committed it was a birthday present to myself. I really wanted to cook. My parents were not into it. They're like, oh, gay, restaurant business, like, it's not very reliable. My dad was a folk singer, I mentioned. Yes. I'm like, Dad, you're a folk singer. He goes, well, and a jazz trumpet player. Like that justified, him criticizing business I wanted to get into because it was unreliable. So by the time, this is like I'm 19 when I do that. So 8 years later, I decide, you know what, I got to do what I love.
So Gale, this inspires another question. Did you have a moment like you're at home and
Wait, are you talking about my calling, my moment where? Oh yeah,
what
totally.
Was it?
So I was a waitress and I give great waitress. I was a waitress at this vegetarian restaurant for like a month. In college, I'm 19, I'm an art student, I'm starving, I'm eating like dandelions and onion bouillon for dinner. So I'm like, I'll work in a restaurant for the family meal of it. And after about a month there, one of the line cooks does a no-show, no-call. Which in our business, like if you're sick, like you don't call like, oh, I need a personal health day. Like we don't have that in our business. Either you're like in jail or you're dead, or you're just quitting and so you don't show. So we lost a line cook that night. My manager looks at me and says, Gale, can you cook? And I said, no, I'm from the North Shore of Chicago. We make reservations, we don't cook. And she threw an apron at me and she said, you can cook now, get in the kitchen. So I was literally forced into the kitchen. So I always say, like, I didn't pick the restaurant business, like it picked me. Yes. It hasn't unpicked me yet, is sort of the answer to your first question.
Right.
So I go on the hotline. I am terrified for about 6 seconds. And I get choked up every time I talk about it. Second number 7, I have this weird sense of calm come over me. Like I had found my home. And like I was speaking a language I was fluent in, but I don't remember learning it.
Oh,
we're both crying.
Was it like that for you?
Yeah, it was.
And that's the night I run home and I call my dad. And I'm like, guess what? I know what I want to do. I want to be a chef. And my dad's like, well, Gay, I guess everybody's got to eat. Like that was his very supportive.
I'm tearing up.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
The thing though I want to add is my dad was actually absolutely right. I mean, the tone could have been nicer, but everyone does have to eat.
Right.
And later, as you get older, your parents get smarter, it seems. I thought, you know what, maybe what he meant was I'm picking this thing that sort of touches everybody. It's like a universal need. Like you can't survive without food.
Yeah.
Music, you could live without it if you had to.
Right.
Food, no.
Right.
So maybe he was saying, you're picking something that's just so fundamental, go out there and feed people.
And
so I do.
And I love this. And I'm going to try not to get emotional now
Right.
because I'm not a
Where's
chef
the
and
Kleenex?
I've not. I know.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm not a chef. I'm an aspiring home chef. But my moment in the kitchen was one that Jaime shared with me in Anne Willen's kitchen, and she is the founder, and I'm getting goosebumps, of La Varenne Cookery in Paris, where
I went to school.
And I'm getting goosebumps. Look at this. So while Jaime and I were sitting in Anne Willen's kitchen, I started crying because she had from the ceiling copper pans hanging, and one was the exact same one that my father would use to make hollandaise sauce. And remember how
Which
emotional.
kind of, if you look at that, that means your father was a pretty sophisticated
he
cook.
was. He was.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and that's why I do Kitchen Chat. Is I'm on this midlife culinary journey, honoring my late father, trying to learn how to cook. I'm so grateful.
We should have made hollandaise today.
Yes, I know.
Do you have the pan? You don't have the pan,
I don't.
do you?
I don't have the pan,
Yeah.
but I made it in my kitchen one try, and it worked. It was a little runny, and I emailed Anne. I said, Anne, here's a picture of the hollandaise sauce I made. And I said, it was a little runny. And she
Yeah.
said, I was at an event once, and Julia Child, called her on stage saying, Anne, where are you? I need help with my hollandaise sauce.
She's the hollandaise queen. Yeah, and I didn't mention today that I cooked with Julia Child. So I was in Baking with Julia and did a couple shows with her. And I think of Anne Willian as sort of the Julia Child of Britain. You know, that's what, they're almost morphed in my brain as
She's
one
magical.
person.
I'll never forget when we went there that day. We're
Yeah.
sitting there in her home, Margaret and I.
you're so lucky.
And she has like it just gives you chills when you're in
Yeah.
there. And she put down a teacup in front of me with all of these music notes around it, not knowing who
Not
I was at all.
knowing.
But
Oh
I
my
travel with
God.
musicians and I love music. And I felt very, very connected to her. And her and I, all of us, we were resonating on a very high level.
Yeah.
She gave me the mother to her red wine vinegar that day, and I brought it home and I shared it with many chefs in Chicago. But that was a special day, and she referenced you
She did.
that day.
She did.
Should I ask what she said?
Very
or no?
positive. Very positive.
Like, that
and-
could mean anything.
and-
you know,
and-
she
and-
referenced
I'll tell
you.
you later what she said.
And I have it on tape because we had a
nice.
kitchen chat.
Well,
and
you know,
she
for
spoke
me,
so
I went to
highly.
La Varenne over the course of 2 years, and it really legitimized me. When people say, "Oh, where'd you go to culinary school?" and I say La Varenne in Paris, you know, no more questions are asked.
What is your favorite sauce to make?
Sauce Soubise. And I feel funny that I have a favorite sauce.
And
Like,
what is
you're not
sauce
supposed to have
Soubise?
a
And I'm
favorite
so
I don't
sauce.
have
So
one.
sauce Soubise is actually an onion sauce. So it comes from a bechamel, but then it has sort of slow cooked onions that are they get slightly sweet because you're converting the carbohydrates to sugar, and then pureeing the whole thing. So yeah, I would say that sauce Soubise is my favorite.
If there's one thing you've learned, one thing that you've learned along this road that we speak of, what would be the one thing to tell that cook, that future great cook, that passionate person that wants to get involved with cooking? What would be the one thing that you've learned about the business and you've learned about yourself that can just give them an ingredient to a successful recipe to the cooking life?
I think there's actually two things.
Okay,
If it's
great.
Okay, I do two. So the first thing is whenever your chef asks you if you can do something, just say yes. So, you know, the line in a kitchen is we chef, you know, yes chef. Just say yes. And you'll figure it out. You know, I was cooking in a hotel in upstate New York and my chef came to me and he's like, Gale, do you make croissant? I'm like, yes, chef. I had never made croissant in my life.
That's the hell out of it.
Right? I said yes. I went home that night. I made 9 different recipes. I stayed up, pulled an all-nighter. I taught myself how to do laminated doughs. I baked up all these different croissants. I figured out which was the best recipe. I combined a few. And when I went to work the next day, and my chef, Greg Broman, said to me, oh, Gale, I need you to make those croissants we talked about yesterday. I'm like, no problem, chef. And I had it. Great. So just say yes. And then you'll figure out how to be successful. You'll figure it out, you'll learn it, you'll find, you know. And now, I mean, we didn't have the internet then to like go look up 9 recipes. I had to like have 9 books.
I did that today.
So just always say yes and know that yourself will come through for yourself. You will figure it out. And then the second thing I would say is always wear comfortable shoes. Because if your feet hurt, like you're not happy, you're well fed,
Right.
you're in a family. My brother used to joke, it's a circus family, you know, and we all
That's right.
move together, and we all quit together and stuff like that. But it's a bit of a, you know, the island of misfit toys, but you have this great tribe or this great community or family that you're functioning within. You're working really hard. You're supporting each other. I actually got the opportunity to work in an all-female kitchen at one point.
Wow, that's amazing.
It
That
was.
is
I worked at
fantastic.
Jams in New York for Jonathan Waxman in 1985, and I don't think it was by design that he only hired women, but we had an all-female kitchen run by Stephanie, who was the chef de cuisine there, and it was so interesting to see how that dynamic is different, and it is. I would love to say it's not, but it is different. And there is this sort of checking on your neighbor, you know, do you got your prep list done? Do you need help with, you know, peeling those carrots? At family meal, we'd all check in with each other and see if anyone was sort of, you know, in the weeds, as we say. And then we'd jump in and help that person. We'd unweed them. They'd get unweeded. So there was this, you know, real, like, we functioned as one big sort of litter, almost. You know, like we moved in as a pack. We were like a pack.
Wow.
Great.
And you get that in the restaurant business, and it feels good.
Yeah.
You know, I suspect that a lot of the people in the biz come from families that are dysfunctional,
Right.
possibly. So you get to pick a new family.
Right.
And if you just can't stop thinking about food and
That's
cooking,
me.
and I just, you know, I'd go to work, when I was a waitress, I'd go to work early because there was a library there. And I'd go to work like 2 hours early and just sit there and read cookbooks. It's like all I wanted
Margaret,
to do.
what have you learned? Did you learn anything from Gale today?
Oh, I am so excited. I cannot wait to share the video of preparing the little shrimp. And I love how you describe them, where the peppers were open.
Peppers like a boat.
Yes.
Those little sweet peppers, you know,
So
they come
great.
in like red, orange, and yellow. You cut them in half.
Yes.
So there's your container for your
Yes.
shrimp.
And then we put the shrimp in, and then Jamie said, well, wrap the sail of bacon around it.
I just went with it.
And then the mast was the
that part. You said that.
and then it sailed onto the cooking sheet, and it was
Exactly.
fabulous.
Well, we went with
Anyone
that
can
whole,
do it,
that
but that
whole-
was special.
That whole boat
Oh,
thing.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
right.
for the journey.
And
Yes.
3 ingredients.
Yes.
You know, things don't have to be complicated.
I was looking at your food, and it was so simple. And it was that 3 ingredients.
mature.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
very
That's what
elegant
that
the way
is.
you did
Yes.
that. And I thought to myself, you know, I would have added a bit of that and a bit of
I
that
thought
and a bit
that
of
you
that.
had like add-ons ready to go.
I did, but it was when I tasted your food, I really tasted those ingredients, and they really danced really well together. So you taught me something today
Oh,
too.
wow.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Yes.
think part of that's a result of, you know, I mentioned I've been cooking for like 4 decades. So in the early 90s, I worked for Charlie Trotter. And, you know, that was a menu that like almost spilled over to the second page because the list of ingredients was so long. And the reaction to that, when we did True, our fancy pants fine dining restaurant that I did with my husband, Rick Tremonto, at the time. He's my
Right.
ex-husband now, but Rick and I both worked at Trotters. And when we came off of that, we're like, you know what? We're gonna do sort of the Chanel trick. We're gonna design a dish, we're gonna look at the ingredients, and we're gonna take one ingredient away. Like, you know how she would
Yeah.
say, like, dress,
Yeah, exactly,
put on,
exactly. Take one thing
accessorize,
off.
and then take one thing off. And we were doing that with food because we felt like chefs had just gotten to this point where, like,
Sure.
you know, day boat scallop with, there's like this list, this arsenal of 17 ingredients, and you know, I'm not sure people cared,
Yeah.
or that it mattered, or that you even tasted the stuff. So I was like, okay, what does this dish really need to
It's so
be
funny.
itself?
I love that you're talking to me about this, because when you had that simple, it was a pepper, a shrimp, and bacon wrap.
Right,
That was
so
it.
that's where I'm at
But
now.
I
I'm like
tasted,
3.
the pepper and the juice of the pepper and the juice of the pepper and
The bacon does the
bacon-
salting for you.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
You know,
it seasoned itself.
Yeah, it seasoned it. Like the pea dip was the same way,
Yeah,
where we
exactly.
added, what was the salt element? Well, that I actually added salt. I'm thinking, no, it was the Brazilian cheese bread,
Oh, and
where
that
like the
was
parm
so
is the
good.
salt.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Well, I love
ingredients are like double timing.
Yes, I love these lessons today. Just say oui and Chanel cuisine. So you've created
Take one
that.
ingredient away,
I love
Yes.
that.
make your life less complicated.
I love being in the culinary field, and I think this was a great conversation today because it's so real. And that's the thing about you that I love the most, is that out of all the chefs that I've met, and I really mean this, you are so down. You are so easy to talk to. You're so real. And I think that comes through not only with your food, but through your personality. The restaurant bubble is so big right now. There's so many options, so many places to go that it's almost confusing for me. I'd like you to answer, like, do you think the restaurant bubble is like bursting, or about to burst?
I don't think it's over, because you're getting like a new generation of, you know, young talented chefs, and a lot of them worked for us at True, you know, which is like Chris Pendel, you know, who's in the Boca group.
Yes.
But I mean, there's just people out there that are you know, who get it and are having fun like we're having fun.
Right, and the other thing is...
I can't keep track of them all, though.
Right.
So I have my
can't keep track of
my traveling sous chef, Kathy Skutecki. I just text Kathy. I'm like, where should I eat? Like, I went to French Room yesterday, who are doing their own, you know, mustards and curing of fish and their own pastrami. And so I have a person who is younger than me that kind of keeps abreast to all that stuff and keeps me
I think
relevant.
today, even socially, people are so connected with the Instagram and the Facebook and the Instagram Live and all that stuff. Do you do that?
I do some of it, but what I was going to say is, at the same time, you kind of have to be true to your own interests. So I was doing, what did I do? I did a pastry class. Oh, it was the Great British Bake Off pastry class.
Fun.
And we learned 3 desserts that you should know, pretending you were going to be a contestant on the Great British Bake Off, which I love that show. So it's like, don't go into that tent without knowing these 3 desserts. So one was sticky toffee pudding. Like, you should know. It's from the Lake District, from Sharrow Bay, and like that's a standard English dessert. Hey, what was the other one? I'm forgetting the second one right now.
I was thinking about banoffee pie this morning.
That might be one, you know,
yum.
and Millionaire Shortbread. I mean, there's a bunch of them
Yeah.
that you really like should know.
Yeah.
But one of the ones, one was Bakewell Tart,
Okay.
which is a frangipane tart, but it's got a layer of raspberry jam between the crust and the frangipane filling.
I just
almond
salivated.
filling. So the third one was Victoria Sponge. Like, that's the classic. It's almost like a genoise in France. The English version of that is a Victoria Sponge, and it's just a yellow cake made with self-rising flour, but the royal wedding was coming up. So, and we had found out, it had been revealed what the flavors were going to be. So it was going to be lemon and elderflower is what Megan and Harry had chosen. So we did a elderflower soak on the Victoria Sponge with lemon curd in between.
Yum.
So we were celebrating, you know, we're getting ready for the wedding like a month in advance. And you can see, I mean, I lived in England for 3 years. I cooked for the royal family. I did afternoon tea for the Queen. Like, I have this thing for Brits.
I feel so...
And so, like, we have to recreate Harry's
I'm a
cake.
loser.
Are you? Why you no?
No, I just...
You didn't get up at like 4:30?
I did.
Did you?
I watched it.
Right?
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
So, I mean, part of it is sort of like tapping into what excites you, and clearly, you know,
Yes.
the royal wedding cake. Though
Absolutely.
there's a lot, you know, there's talk about it. Like, some of my cake decorator friends were not pleased.
Oh, really?
Yes, they said it was not royal wedding quality.
Juice.
Ooh,
Fresh
yeah,
squeezed
yes.
juice.
Good,
Fresh
yes.
squeezed juice here on
Gary
Kitchen.
Vincent's not happy with the royal wedding cake. But anyway,
Wow.
we echoed the flavors. We, you know, sort of celebrated this union, which is one of the cool things about being a pastry chef. You get to help people celebrate these moments where they want to stop time
I never really thought about that.
and mark them. Oh yeah, I'm a part of
Yeah, you
people's.
sure are.
They're like, we had our wedding and you made the cake, and I was here, you know, or I got engaged at your restaurant and you made the dessert that the engagement ring was in. Like, I'm a part of these moments in people's lives.
and
It's such a
very
And
privilege.
Gail, it's kind of like you don't think about those things, and now that you're, you know, you don't realize them until someone says it. And
Yeah.
I know, and I resonate with that a lot.
I'm sure people come up to you and be
Sure.
like, "You're the one
Yeah,
that,
right,
you know,
right, right.
when I
Many,
beat cancer, I
right,
came
right,
to
right,
your,
right.
you
Exactly.
know, I had your whatever dish,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's how I celebrated getting my appetite back."
Right,
And-
right, right.
Yes.
And
So
you're
as
a part
a
of that.
chef,
As a
you're
chef, that's a good-
yeah, you're
that's a
in
very good
people's
point.
lives, helping them mark these moments. It's a super privileged thing that, you know, I didn't know that was part of the deal, but I feel very fortunate that I'm in people's lives helping them
And
mark
you
these moments.
create taste memories.
Right.
You know, as chefs, you create taste memories. You really do. What would be 3 tips? And I always like to kind of wrap up each kitchen chat with 3 top tips for the home chef.
When I go to the grocery store to figure out what I'm making for dinner that night, because I pretend I'm French and, you know, we're just shopping for the day, I look for what speaks to me. Many things speak to me, but, and I've been thinking about this lately. When I cook for people who aren't chefs, you know, there's kind of some pressure. Like,
Yeah.
my daughter Ruby was asking me yesterday, we were going, where were we? we were going over to our friend Cornelia and Jim's house. Mom, what are you going to bring? I'm like, I don't know, and it's got to be enough, and it's got to be great. And then she's like, do you feel pressure when you go to someone's house? I'm like, I guess, kind of. Like, I feel
there's an
like
expectation.
Yeah, there is. And then the next day, we were going to visit Dan and Steve, the Hardy Boys, at their Michigan house. And when I'm doing something with them, my ideas just fly. I'm like, oh, I got to bring that salami, and let's do that ricotta with honey, and oh, I've got 3 steaks in the freezer, let's grab those, and then I've got that hummus that the ideas just flow. So when I'm cooking with chef friends, I'm realizing this, like the whole nervous thing goes away.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you have that
no,
too?
I
agree
would
with
think
that.
the home chef, I would be so nervous cooking with a chef.
You don't have to be, because you know
No,
we don't get invited.
we'll eat
anywhere.
anything. Yeah, we don't.
I'll invite
Tomato soup
you
and
all.
grilled cheese sandwich.
One of my best friends, my friend Karen Katz, who tests a lot of my recipes, the first night I met her, and she knew I was a chef, she's like, hey, do you want to stay for dinner? I said, what are you having? She goes, salmon burgers. Like, I was so happy that anyone would cook anything for me, and I'd never had a salmon burger. I didn't even know what that was. So our friendship is like based on this initial feeding that has to do with her not being self-conscious. I don't know how you get that kind of self-esteem though. But we're just happy to get fed, because we're usually starving.
What were the 2 other tips?
I don't know
I'm
if
so
we got
sorry.
3 tips.
When you're
Walk
shopping,
around the
the
store
food
and see what
speaks.
speaks to you. Don't be afraid of leftovers, because I love leftovers. I think leftovers are great.
Delish.
And they're even sort of
get
like,
better.
mystery basket-ish. Like, again, open the fridge and be like, okay, I've got some cavatappi and I've got some smoked salmon left. The other night I found like snap peas, and I had like 1 crab leg, and like all these bits and pieces, and it made a great pasta. So don't be afraid to sort of like piece your leftovers together to make something new out
Great
of
tip.
them.
Yes.
And then we need a
Perfect.
3rd tip. And we can't use the comfortable shoes already,
Oh, the
right?
comfortable shoes. That's fine. Be comfortable in the kitchen. Be comfortable in the kitchen, I guess.
I think let people help you, which I could sort of,
I love a good dishwasher, just saying.
yeah.
I love a good, and I've got one at home.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being on Kitchen Chat today. I love this special toast that you taught our group today. Can you share it with the viewers and
Yes.
listeners of Kitchen
And
Chat?
even though I've done it more than 3 times, I'm still going to give credit to who it comes from. So Steve McDonough of the Hardy Boys, who has a cocktail book, he's a mixologist, has a bunch of toasts in the back of the book, like, to our wives and girlfriends, may they never meet, stuff like that. Sounds funny, but this one's really useful. The toast is Toccato Uno, Toccato Tutti, which means I touch one, I touch all. So if you're in a large group, like where you can't reach everybody, you can just touch one glass, and then your job is to touch the other glass, and your job is to touch the next one. And we've all kind of clinked then without having to. So Toccato Uno, Toccato Tutti.
Yes. Cheers to you, dear foodie friends. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey on Kitchen Chat. Make sure you visit Chicago Merchandise Mart here at the Viking and La Cornue showroom and meet Chef Jaime, Laurita. Check out Chef Gale Gand's fabulous cookbooks. I'll make sure I have links. And always remember to take a moment and savor the day.